All right. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to all of our friends out there in webinar land. My name is Jay Merlinson, the Chief Evangelist for ARIS, and I'm so excited to be joined today by one of my good friends here at ARIS, Kai, to talk a little bit more about how you can become so fresh, so clean, so ARIS with the new ARIS capabilities to modify and change exactly how things look to make them feel the way you need. Now, before we get started, I want to say hello here from Toronto, Canada, where I'm based. Kai, tell me a little bit more. Where are you based, my friend?
Yeah, hi everyone from my side as well, and thanks, JM. So I'm based in Nuremberg, Bavaria, in Germany, and we have a really lovely afternoon here. And I'm really happy that so many people are joining and hopefully watching this later on.
And I see some people posting in the chat. That's a good point. A couple of housekeeping items, of course, before we get started. There's a chat. Please let us know where you're from, calling on in from. We have ARIS friends all over the world who are coming today to join us and see what we're doing. I'd also love to see if you could use the chat and Q&A feature to help us answer the questions you might have burning in your hearts about some of the things Kai is going to talk about today. So I'll be answering Q&A all session long and highlighting some of these comments. So perhaps we can see Daniela from Ireland. Look at that. See, I can highlight your comment and say hello to you. So feel free to throw things in the chat. I would love to hear from you, your challenges, your solutions, your triumphs, this whole question and answer thing. We'd love to be able to provide some feedback along the way. So that's our thing. Thank you for being here as part of the ARIS webinar series. We have a ton of webinars coming up that are going to be covering a variety of different topics. So stay tuned as we get all this information, both about best practices around the ARIS platform, around BPM, around customer journey, around risk and compliance, around everything associated with our world of process and architecture come to life, including functional sessions like today's with Kai. So ask your questions, stay tuned, and we're excited to have you here. But with no further ado, this is Kai, one of my good friends here at ARIS, who's been with the company for quite some time. But more importantly, he's had an opportunity to develop some really cool skills around using the platform at a very high level. And one of the things today we're going to talk about is the facelift that makes ARIS more accessible, more approachable for people. I mean, I got to tell you, Kai, we haven't had a chance to chat a lot about this, but when I first joined ARIS almost a decade and a half ago, my goodness, it looked really different, and I got to tell you, the uptake in ARIS usage was always a battle. You had to convince people that a technical interface was more beneficial for the business because the capabilities were worth it, but boy, that's not the case these days, and it's such a difference when you feel invited into a space where you can collaborate with all of the folks who are associated with the processes you care about, but you don't have to fight for it. It's an open invitation. I love that, and that's what we're going to talk about today as we change the way ARIS looks to meet people's needs. But Kai, I'm spoiling the broth a little bit here. I want to get started. Tell me a little bit more about your plan for today, and let's talk about elevating the user experience in ARIS.
Yeah, thanks a lot, JM, and hi everyone. Thank you very much for joining today's session. As JM already teased, we are really happy to show you how you can elevate the user experience in ARIS with simple tweaks, I promise. Nothing that is super heavy in terms of customization, or it's really something that you can try out afterwards, and I encourage you to do so. In between, as JM already mentioned, please use the Q&A to ask questions. We will also have a Q&A section in the middle and at the end of this session, and we will also have some polls during this presentation. So feel free to also provide your feedback, your thoughts using that. By now, you should all be able to see my screen, and I would say let's get started. So first of all, I would like to tell you a little bit more about why are we doing this session. We are doing it by popular demand, in fact, because we regularly hear from our customers that ARIS brings a lot of great functionality to really make BPM fly in the organization. However, we also hear that they sometimes struggle to increase the adoption, increase the coverage of their BPM practice because of the user interface. There are also certain cases that are quite, I would say, extreme, and I'm going to show you that right now. And there the feedback is even ARIS is really old school, really complex. It's really hard to navigate in there. And here are just two very extreme old school examples. For those of you who have been working in the ARIS space for, let's say, 10 years or more, you might still be familiar with that user interface. And the reality is, as a matter of fact, sometimes that is still out there. While functionality is great and value-adding in the year 2025, this is no longer the user experience that people expect working with a BPM tool. And also, while there are many various factors that can influence the adoption and the success or failure of business process management, the tool, the solution that you're providing, is one of the most obvious and the most tangible ones. So yes, poor user experience kills BPM adoption, kills success of BPM, and also kills BPM tool adoption because there are too many clicks needed. It's really difficult to find relevant contents. Massive wallpapers of models that you need to scroll left, right, and center. And it might also be challenging to understand the actual complexity, cross-functional dependencies, relations between the organizational perspective, the process perspective, the system perspective, and so on. So this is truly something that I'm very passionate about because I think BPM is a key enabler in any organization. It's never the end in itself, but it's a means to an end, and that is to transform your business model, to improve processes, to create transparency. And this is all obviously a team sport. So it's very important that the tooling is engaging and also easy to use for your organization. Now, before we go into the hacks and the tweaks, I would like to kick it off with a first quick poll, and I encourage you to be honest. So how do you and obviously your users rate your current ARIS user interface and the overall experience? In just a second, you will see a little poll where you can pick one of the options. Is it super amazing, sleek and stylish? Maybe functional, but it could be more modern. Or are you actually rather in the area that you've seen on the screenshot, too complex, super old school, don't like it right now? Feel free to run the poll now. Curious to hear your feedback. And also, feel free to leave some further comments about your current user interface as we go through the presentation. Always curious to hear as well what you have tried, what you're trying out, what your current situation is.
So Kai, we're starting to get some results back already, and it's an interesting grouping of results. As you might imagine, sleek and stylish only has one vote. It's by far the least of the votes, and we're about 2/3 functional, but could be more modern, and 1/3 too complex and old school, which is an interesting combination of results. There's a lot of folks who are kind of in the middle, and some who are pulling towards the detractor sort of. The interface itself is sort of working against the purpose of a tool like ARIS. Yeah, it's about just about 2/3 functional, but could be more modern, and 1/3 too complex and old school. Well, we'll close the poll for a second here, and thank you for your votes. It's great to see people responding back and doing this. I will say that this often depends on the audience you're talking to. And Kai, I think we're going to go a little bit through personas. But when you look at the types of people who access a platform like ARIS, you divide them into their functional roles and their technical capabilities and what they're looking for. And so if you're have a group of people who are mostly focused on architecture, people who are Six Sigma, people who are into simulation, who have really that sort of very heavy technical underpinning. That's their background, that's their need set. Then really they're looking for the interface to be able to activate functionality. But when we change that word a little bit, a larger audience of business stakeholders are looking for this capability to be enabled within the organization. So they're not looking for buttons that do the thing that's sort of on the tin. They're looking for information first, or sort of guidance first. And that changes the picture quite a lot. And I'd love to see, if we're looking at 2/3, 1/3 right now, I'd love to see how we can move those numbers after a quick facelift more towards sleek and stylish, or at least more functional.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And thank you for your feedback. To be very honest, this result doesn't surprise me. It's basically part of the day-to-day interactions I have with you, with other customers. Oftentimes very functional, but it could be more modern, sometimes too complex, too old school, not adaptive enough. So I would say, let's jump into what you can do to inspire you a little bit, and to also encourage you to try out certain things that we were going to show you in this webinar, in order to get that changing and moving more towards sleek and stylish. I have two topics prepared for you today. The first one here on the left-hand side is the topic of fact sheets, creating and structuring fact sheets. For those of you who are using ARIS Connect, you might have heard that term already. Fact sheets are a great way to visualize information about models, objects, related objects, or attributes in a widget-based manner. So you can really design auto-generated fact sheets that are really targeted to a specific audience. And you can do that for any model type and for any object type very flexibly. The great thing about it is, we'll see that in a bit, it's 100% do-it-yourself. Self-service configuration, which is available starting from ARIS Service Release 24 upwards. Now we are already at Service Release 28, so also in the course of time, in the course of releases, more enhancements have been made to make even further use of that. The second part that we will look at afterwards is to bring in more personalization, a bit of a more personal or role-based approach into ARIS, to make sure that your users, your stakeholders, your organization can easier jump into those areas that are relevant for them, and also personalizing your portal. That second part is about establishing, let's say, an overarching structure in a very different, more website-like look and feel, where you have more navigation possibilities, also beyond ARIS, into outside systems, documents, etc. But not that classic, I click from one model to another kind of thing. This is called last mile approach, and the last mile approach has been developed by our ARIS professional services team. So on the one hand, it is also release stable, but it requires some initial work where our professional services colleagues are happy to help. However, afterwards, it's very easy for you to adapt. So there's this initial step, and then you can be really flexible for different areas, locations, or teams to provide more personalized experiences. But let's start with part one, creating our fact sheets. And I've already mentioned a little bit about it. So fact sheets have a main purpose of helping you to structure and simplify complex information. Probably your ARIS is also full of a lot of knowledge, but it's difficult to understand. Fact sheets make it a bit more easy. They also help you and your users to navigate within the ARIS platform between different content types from A to B. And they also help you to visualize relations across and beyond processes. So it gets much easier to understand the relation between processes, the organization, and systems. Lastly, and that's maybe a bit of an extreme use case, but that is what I usually try to promote as well, is you can use the fact sheets to truly digitize documents. So today you might have policies in Word or PDF. You might have job descriptions that are stored somewhere. Fact sheets can be a way to get this information into ARIS, to truly digitize them, and to have them integrated with your process architecture, your organizational structure, your system landscape, your data landscape, whatever it is that you have maintained in ARIS. So let's take a look. And for that, I will no longer be Kai, the pre-saler. I'm going to be Kai, the project manager for the coming minutes. And I'm working in the HR department, and there are a lot of projects going on. And I'm assigned to a system replacement project. We want to modernize a system. And as a first step, it's my job now to prepare a high-level impact analysis to understand the scope and also the scale of where the system is being used and the things, the stakeholders, etc., that we need to consider. And in order to do that, I know that ARIS is my sidekick. However, I'm pretty new in HR, and I have no idea what I'm doing. So I can't just go sit down and write things down because I have them on top of my mind. I really need to look into ARIS, and my deadline is yesterday, so I need to have it quick. And in order to get that going, let's jump into ARIS and take a look. So first of all, what you see right here is the ARIS landing page. As you already, probably most of you know, if you're using Connect, you have those different widgets. And I know that if I want to look into the HR area, I need to jump into my business processes from the starting page. And then I navigate over to my support processes and human resource management. Now, what I see here is a value-added chain diagram. And since we're talking about a recruitment system, I can also see, here, there's a recruitment area. So there are certain processes here, new hire approval, applicant search, but that doesn't really help me to understand the impact. And I actually don't have the time to walk through everything now one by one into the lowest level of granularity for a high-level impact analysis. So I see there's a tab called Overview. And when I click on it, I see that there are a few more information than just this plain picture. And what I see here is a quick description about the overall HR organization. Here, a preview of the diagram again. And here I see processes. Okay, but that still doesn't really help me. So what I'm doing next is, because I need this information, I go to the ARIS administrator, whose name coincidentally is also Kai. And I ask, hey, Kai, you're the administrator. Can you help me? I need this impact analysis and I need it yesterday. And Kai says, hey, no problem. I got you. Let's do something to get you the information at your fingertips. And now we're going to redesign this overview tab. This is one of the tabs that you can activate for your models and also for singular objects. And then you can edit them very easily. So everything I need to do as an administrator is I go to Edit here in the top right corner, and then I can configure the fact sheet. And if I click the Configure Fact Sheet button, I'm transitioning into an editing mode, which allows me to redesign this fact sheet and to highlight certain information that are in my ARIS content, but maybe not obvious in my model. And what you see here are essentially widgets that I can pick. And I can now start to redesign this landing page very flexibly. So as you can see, I can make things smaller and bigger. I can change the arrangements of it. And I can also add further information. So first of all, I have an add button here, and I have the following options. So there are certain predefined modules that you can use and then also configure in a way that makes sense for you. One is a model viewer, which we already have right here. You can add dashboards if you have relevant dashboard content and KPIs that you want to depict in here. HTML documentation, tasks in order to visualize workflow tasks that a user might have, a documents tab, and you can also add properties. And properties are either attributes related to the model. It could be objects and their attributes that occur or are related with the model. And you can create a table view. And we get to the table view in just a bit. So now, what is important in an impact analysis? Obviously, the organization, the systems, and maybe even more. So let's start by dragging in one of these list view items, just making this a bit bigger. And now you have the possibility to edit this. And this works pretty easily. First of all, you select properties, and there's always activities by default. And then you can simply say, show me the organizational elements behind this model. Then you can also say, make it with a proper icon that depicts the organization. And this way, you now have a widget listing all the organizational units, partially also roles, as you can see, that are involved in the HR area. You can do exactly the same with any other information that you have maintained in ARIS, or maybe haven't maintained, but you want to get started on it. So let's also add the IT systems. That's the supporting systems in this case. And here again, I can choose the way I want it to look. So you can have a labeled list with a group icon. That means there is a label, supporting systems, and they have this icon. However, I want a label list with the item type dependent icon, which would be the system. That makes it also more intuitive. One cool thing is that you can make this clickable, and you can also say it should always be shown. This way, this widget will even appear if there are no information behind. So this allows you to highlight certain key information that are mandatory and should be maintained going forward. With that, I click Save. I make this bigger. And as you can see, there's a whole different look and feel and information richness already. So there's a lot of possibilities, also depending on the contents that you have maintained, and also based on the use cases that you want to pursue and provide to your users. Maybe let's add one more. Let's take another list view and just take the risk component, or maybe something else. Let's do the outputs, because that is obviously flow of data, flow of information is important. So we take in the outputs that are created within this process area HR. And now we have a landing page that is already giving a much easier and more intuitive point of view on the contents that are actually in the area of HR. A lot of organizational units, a lot of systems, etc. Now, here down there, we have a table. And in this table, you can also have further information and flexible design opportunities in terms of columns. So here I would say we put in similar information. The great thing here is that you have all the value-added chain objects here listed. So applicant selection, offboarding, internal job change. And let's just add a couple of more information, such as the roles that are involved in that process. And as you can see here in the preview, this is directly populating automatically with the inputs that you have. You can have another list property for the IT systems. And then we can also make this a labeled list. No, we'd make this a normal list, exactly. And this way, you already see that there are multiple dimensions, the process, the organization, and the system dimension coming together, listed out very neatly. And with this overview, Kai, the project manager, can now work and do his first assessment. So while this is reloading, I just want to reiterate that this redesign of fact sheets is possible for every model type and for every object type, meaning every model, every object can have such a fact sheet one-pager, or even multiple of those fact sheets. in case you say, I want to have one that has more an organizational focus, one that has more technical focus, and maybe one that has more a data focus or a risk focus, for instance. So as you see, took us a couple of minutes, and you see the richness of information that is just unfolding with a couple of clicks. Now with this, Kai, the project manager, can now say, hi, here in HR, I don't have to navigate anywhere apart from the top level of the process architecture. And I see already the system that we want to replace. And by clicking on this, we are now on an object level. You can see the details about the e-recruiting system. Also here we have widgets such as a description, certain usage and service level agreement information that might come and be maintained from your IT department, and as well the process coverage. Process coverage is again a table that allows me as the project manager to see which processes use this system, who are the process owners, and what are the roles, what are the personas using the system ultimately on a day-to-day basis in order to perform this process. And as you have seen, we've been jumping from the process perspective now to the system perspective. We can also jump back into the process perspective or maybe into the role perspective. So now I just selected the local HR recruiter, which plays a big role and has a lot of tasks in a recruitment process. And also this role can have a role chart or a job description auto-generated using ARIS contents. So what I've added here, just as an example, is a description. There could be also multiple sections of descriptions in different widgets, the processes that the recruiter is involved, the systems they are using, and also a small RACI matrix or RACI matrix showing at a bird's eye view what are the tasks that I'm responsible, accountable, consulted, and informed for. So really a lot of possibilities, and it's very easy to maintain since as an administrator, you always have the configure fact sheet button at your fingertips. So with that, we have now taken a closer look into how these fact sheets allow you to provide information on a very high level in a nice overview, so that users who first want to familiarize themselves with the process or who need a fast and quick overview can consume a lot of content, navigate from A to B without being in the details or much scrolling or much clicking. It's simply a very structured one-pager that you can even take into a meeting, put it on the screen, share it, and discuss contents with.
Yeah, I want to chime in here, Kai, because one thing that I want to remind folks about is that not only is this a way of showing people key information they need and making it easy to navigate, remember that fact sheets are also a space for contribution. So as much as you are telling, you are also inviting. People can come in and use them as a mechanism of key maintenance of attributes, of even relationships. Those are really easy tools to invite more people to give you their business knowledge right at the source in ARIS.
You're touching on a great point, JM. And yeah, I just moved back to this one page, to this fact sheet. And yeah, it's a great point as well to say that even if you might have users who do not want to or can't model, but they have valuable knowledge to contribute into ARIS. And let's say we have a certain process structure, doesn't matter if it's a value-added chain diagram or if it's a process model or an organizational chart. There is the possibility to provide contribution rights using the so-called Viewer Pro license. That's an extended viewer that can contribute. And for them, it's as well pretty handy to have this overview fact sheet, because they can simply go into a very lean editing mode, click the edit button, for example, to edit the description here and add certain further information or correct, remove something. And then this is being directly, it's kind of modeling and maintaining without modeling and maintaining. So very lean, you don't need to have extensive modeler trainings, etc. Here, for example, you can also have the possibility to assign objects like roles or IT systems simply by clicking here. And maybe let's take the HR recruiter again. Once you type in the name of a role, you can leverage the ARIS repository of your roles, your systems, etc., and contribute even into the process model without actually modeling. So that's a great way to also engage users who are not modelers to contribute, to extend, or to also keep contents up to date in a very lightweight manner. Thanks for that comment, JM. Good. So that was part one, using fact sheets, creating fact sheets for models and objects. Here's a quick summary, and afterwards we'll do a short break for Q&A. So the fact sheets allow you to visualize key information on these auto-generated one-pages. It uses the contents that you define and document in ARIS. And the great thing is it's 100% ARIS standard. It's release stable, which means that once you update to a newer ARIS version, this configuration, this look and feel will remain the same. It works for all model and object types, and you can choose for which ones you want to activate and deactivate it. And as JM mentioned, and you've just seen now, you can also enable users who are not modelers to edit and contribute contents into ARIS to keep your contents relevant, to extend them, and to keep them up to date. Prerequisites, one more time, ARIS Connect, obviously, service release 24 or higher. It works on-premise and in the cloud. And in order to do those configurations on the fact sheets, you obviously have to be an admin user with portal administrator privilege. And once you adopt these changes, they will be available for all the models of a particular type. Good. Before we continue, JM, I would like to pause quickly for questions. How are we doing in the Q&A?
We are busy, my friend. A lot of technical questions. That's fantastic to see people. We've answered a couple of them. So there's some good examples of, is actually, if you wouldn't mind stop sharing your screen, I can share here. There we are. Does maintaining this fact sheet maintain for just this model or for all models? And I think that what we talked about is that this is modifying the fact sheet or the subordinate sheet for all of this type of model, or actually the supergroup of model, because you define a series of models to be what you're going to be modifying the sheet for. So these fact sheets have an item that you're modifying for. That item has a list of things that it's relevant to. So for instance, you're modifying the process item. That process item could be relevant to a bunch of different types of models. And then you're modifying the fact sheet for that item, which means every model that draws upon that part of that item group uses that same fact sheet. When you modify it, you modify all of them, which is very convenient.
Exactly. So it's just to complement on that, it always covers one model type, and that also allows you to keep a very clean and consistent layout for a particular model type. However, for a different stakeholder group, let's say the HR department, who might be more coming from the organizational chart perspective, or your IT department comes more from the system perspective, they can have, for their particular organizational charts or IT system diagrams, they can have a different design. But then for all the org charts, all the IT system diagrams, this style will be adopted for all of them.
Yeah, that's a great question and answer. The next one we have is, can we have different fact sheets for the same model type showing different views? Kai, I don't know if you have an answer you'd like to say for this. I certainly have some ideas here.
So what comes to mind to my mind is you can have multiple fact sheets for one model type. So if you want to have different perspectives and different fact sheets on a BPMN process model, for example, you can have multiple tabs and design separate fact sheets depending on the target audience, and then they can pick and choose which one to use. JM, do you have any further ideas?
Yeah, I was actually in the background. I have ARIS up and running, and I'm just like looking around, being like, yeah. So and that's a good thing. You can name them different things. You can portray them differently. Essentially, a different tab on any given model or object for a different audience focus, or a certain like name on here's what you want to see here. Yes, you're kind of implying something, Andre, which I think is really cool, which is that yes, a single fact sheet could get quite complex in itself in an effort to reduce complexity. So what we do, like you would with models, when models get too big and unruly, you segment them down. And I think that's a fantastic thing. So we'll pause questions for a moment because I know you have a second section, Kai. A couple of good questions from folks. We have lots of more questions. I'll keep answering them in the chat. But why don't we go to the second part of the presentation? Then we'll have a little bit more time for questions at the end.
Yeah, absolutely. Before we do that, we have another poll ready for you. Now that you've seen the self-service configuration, we obviously want to know, have you tried it out already? Have you been playing around maybe, or have you testing it, or maybe already adopted it? So the options are yes, and we're loving it. Yes, tried it once. Not yet, but maybe after seeing it now, we want to try it soon. Or didn't know it existed, or don't need it. Appreciate your feedback.
Let's take a look at what the answers are here. Wow, wow, my goodness.
Awesome.
Kai, I think you're changing hearts and minds here, because we have the most common votes are yes, we're loving it, but also very close by, no, didn't know it existed. Hey, for folks who didn't know that it existed, that's fantastic. I'm really glad we're showcasing some of these capabilities. You know, all the folks here are folks here are already using ARIS and loving it, but not knowing that fact sheet configuration was an important part of how they communicated. I love it. So that's a good sort of investigation for everyone here. Thank you for coming to this webinar. Please come to more of these. This is a great way of learning how the platform that we all know and love could work even better for you and your organization. So we have actually a tie, three-way tie. Yes, we're loving it. Not yet, but I'll try it soon. And no, didn't know it existed.
Fantastic. Yeah. And to everyone who didn't know it existed, please be invited to try it out, or reach out to your account executive, customer success manager, or pre-sales counterpart to dive deeper into it. We really see that this is creating a lot of impact to leverage the contents that you have in ARIS, to encourage more people to contribute more contents into ARIS. So if you need help, if you're interested, if you have certain use cases in mind, please don't hesitate to contact us. We are super happy to discuss that with you. Good. JM, shall we continue?
We shall, my friend. Looking forward to part 2.
Fantastic. Good. So now we have looked at the topic of fact sheets, and this is, as I said, 100% DIY. You can try it out. Super happy to see that people on this webinar already tried it out and they're loving it. Now let's look at something that takes this whole thing to the next level. And as I mentioned in the intro, this has been developed by our professional services team. It is called last mile approach, and the idea is to have a more role-based access into ARIS and to create an overarching structure for contents and for navigation within ARIS and from ARIS into other systems or other relevant assets. It is a way of providing content more dynamically. So I've been mentioning role-based in ARIS. So yes, you can have a way without customization, but with configuration and a little help from professional services to have more role-based access, hence less clicks, less searching, more finding using that. It will look completely different to what you've seen so far because it uses more the style of tiles in order to visualize and to navigate and guide users. And I would say, let's take a look. And I also want to take you into the ARIS administration to see where you can actually find those settings. So it's not just on a particular model type, but in your administration. As an administrator, obviously, you have a section called Manage Configuration Sets here in the publication settings. And in there, you will find, in my case, since we are working with many customers, many configuration sets or modification sets. And I'm now looking for the last mile one. And I will activate that now. You can also create a duplicate of your configuration set if you like and try it out and do certain settings here. But let's activate this different modification set. And as you see, I'm not switching into other ARIS environment, but as I approach the landing page, it looks completely different. So it's also very easy from one day to the other to introduce something like that, to try it out and to also improve it. And what you see right here is the last mile approach. And what you can see here is obviously there are no models in the spotlight. You can have them, but you don't have to. But we chose for this example rather a divisional split. So there are maybe different departments and divisions in your company that want to have a dedicated access to their particular contents and processes. You can also have these tiles to depict an end-to-end process or the high-level phases. So here in a clinical trial process, for example, design and planning, startup, conduct, and underneath that, you don't only have a process or maybe an org chart, but you can also have links to documents. You can have multiple things. And here in the top right corner, you have My Area. In My Area is, as you know it from the previous example, human resources. And this is fed by a user group context. So I'm in a user group for human resources. And since I'm logging in from that user group, I have this department right here as My Area. If I would work in a different area or a different user, would probably have a different area right here to really, with one click, navigate into relevant contents of the respective department. So by clicking on this one, we are now entering this, what I call an overarching structure. This is not a model as such, but it's a fact sheet that is configured in a way that it provides as well widgets, but mainly different tiles. And this is how many people want to approach the content, right? Because you don't want to go to ARIS for the processes, to SharePoint or whatever document storage you might use for documents and policies, and maybe somewhere else to access any other information. Now, what you can do with Last Mile is you can have these tiles, and those tiles either bring you into the ARIS content, so the processes, or they provide you a link and navigation into the intranet. You can even have links to, with one click, contact your colleagues or certain stakeholders involved in that. And this is super flexible. So as you can see, if I click on HR processes, I remain in ARIS and I end up on the fact sheets that you've just seen. This one is now designed a little bit different, but the contents are all the same. And as you can see, it's the same content, and it's super flexible to really twist and turn around here. If we go back to this page, I would like to next show you how this is set up. So on the one hand side, there are certain assets that and design considerations that you together with our professional services team are taking. So for example, you need to define what is the structure of that you want to provide. Is it role-based? Is it department-based, is it location-based, legal entity-based, or something else? And then based on that, we are together developing a structure that you can afterwards, as an administrator, maintain independently. But this core node and this core logic of we're doing role-based or organization-based is something that we need to define together. Professional services has a couple of tricks up their sleeve in order to activate this. And from there onwards, you are very independent in designing this, shaping this, and also changing it. And this is also release stable. So as you can now see, we have HR organization, processes, and a lot of other things. Now, how do you maintain those tiles? And that's pretty cool. It's because these tiles are generated based on models. And let's just take a look under the hood. So I'm going into my area, human resources, and there are two models underneath. One is the content, and one is the button on the landing page. We can skip this one. So if you go to HR content, we will find the elements that you have previously seen as the tiles. So to the org chart, to the processes, to the intranet page. And what you can do here is you can, for example, add an external link. And let's just take Google for the sake of simplicity. I already created this once. And we are now adding a tile into the last mile HR area. And I've already added the link to Google. And by hitting the save button, I'm just modeling, just like a normal process design. And if I now go back to my area HR, we will see that this tile is now here as well. So you can create an overarching layer, and you are, after a small initial setup, you're very flexible in the tiles. The great thing is that this is really area independent. So HR can have this set of contents and links, and another area like the finance department, they might have completely other ones. They might also have completely other widgets and so on. And yeah, it's a very cool thing. It takes away the navigation from the models, which some users just do not prefer as much as navigating the tiles. It makes it even cleaner. And from there, you can still make use of the fact sheets that we have seen in the first part. So to wrap it up, what you've seen just now is the last mile approach that has been designed by our professional services. Just like the fact sheets, it's 100% ARIS standards. It's no customization, it's configuration. Hence, it's release stable. It's a way of providing an alternative and also overarching navigation layer. And it helps you to personalize content and to make use of user groups, for example, for specific areas, and to make sure that users of a specific group have an entry point that makes sense to them. Similar to the first part that we've seen, the fact sheets, it starts with service release 24, since when we have the widgets available in ARIS Connect. We need the respective privileges, and obviously some starting content from our professional services team and certain assets that need to be added to your model and object filter potentially in order to activate the possibility to model the tiles in a model that then show up as beautiful tiles in the portal. Okay, and now to wrap it up, and then we go into Q&A, let's just take another quick look into me and my high-level impact analysis, making use of both the last mile concept as well as the fact sheets. So as I'm entering ARIS, my deadline was yesterday. Keep that in mind. I go to human resources, and from here it's obvious. I go to the processes and I get my first bird's eye view on the content. I have the possibility to jump into a one-pager for a particular system, which then not just gives me relevant information, but it also gives me the possibility to jump into other dimensions as well, a certain persona or role, a risk, or maybe even a detailed process model, which then in turn as well has a fact sheet available that breaks down the information on this level of granularity even further. So there's a lot of things possible, and I hope you liked it. I'm curious to hear further questions. And before we go into questions, final poll, how useful are those tweaks? What do you think? How useful are those tweaks in order to increase the BPM tool adoption and acceptance and also engagement in BPM? Awesome. So maybe you want to try it as soon as possible. Some of you already did. Useful and considering to take certain ideas forward. Somewhat, so good food for thought. Or maybe, nah, doesn't fit our setup. Curious to hear your final feedback on that.
We see a lot of good answers already from folks. We see the vast majority is useful, will take some ideas forward. That is by far the biggest part of the pyramid. And some folks who are saying awesome, some folks saying somewhat, but the vast majority is useful. We'll take some ideas forward. And Kai, I think that's a really good point here. I wanted to circle back on something you talked about earlier on the tile design, because one of the challenges we have is helping to set up your BPM repository as your town square. You know, we talk about this a lot, this idea that people can have conversations within ARIS about a variety of different topics that matter to them and their day-to-day. And to do that, we need to give them access, attract them in, but also help them to connect to other resources they might need. Otherwise, they're going to be jumping from system to system to system, as you mentioned. So when we see this tiles approach, what kinds of other information have you seen added as a tile on an ARIS homepage for people besides just a link to one or two other external sites?
Yeah, I mean, it really gets interesting when you start to provide links that directly lead you into operational systems, or that maybe lead you to a certain Teams channel, so that you can really directly perform certain tasks in your day-to-day business. So the great thing is it's super flexible, and you can just link to everything that has a link. So I think getting closer to the execution side, considering that maybe you're implementing a new system and you want people to use ARIS as a knowledge center for process documentation and guide them to the tool. This might be a great approach to do that. Similarly, if you are obligated to have certain policies at a certain space storage, just provide that from there directly into a policy, maybe not just to the repository.
I love that. And I think that's a really good point to turn this from just a sort of publishing platform to an operational job aid. Talk a little bit about the fact sheets, like how they can be, they can contain the right kind of information for people. But one of the pieces of information is like, how do I do my job? And where do I go next to actually get it done? I think that's a very good point. That takes them directly into the systems that they need to be using to complete the tasks outlined in ARIS. We have a couple of great questions here, and I think we wanted to ask. There's more technical ones. So one of the technical questions that I have is adding custom attributes. Can you add custom attributes to your fact sheets as an item list?
Yes, you can. It's a two-step approach in that regard. So you need to go one level deeper in your content type configuration and activate this content type, this attribute as a content type, to make use of it in the fact sheet configuration. Please don't hesitate to reach out to me. We don't have the time now to show it, but feel free to reach out to me or to your account team. We can show that to you, no problem.
Fantastic. The next one is sharing what kind of privileges are required to use fact sheet configuration, particularly fact sheet configuration, and in ARIS, what types of functional privileges, what types of license privileges you need to have to be able to do that?
So you need to have the portal administrator privilege as a functional privilege and an administrator license in order to do that. And for the contribution, so the editing within a fact sheet, you can provide users with a so-called Viewer Pro license, which extends the viewing rights with the possibility to make certain smaller edits in terms of attributes, or maybe, as you've seen, adding objects that are existing to your contents.
Excellent. And let's pick one last question for today's conversation. I know people are there's so many good questions. Actually, I'll pick two more. One more is can we use a filter for our fact sheets? And I would say first and foremost that when you're looking at fact sheet configuration, your fact sheet view is already going to be is already affected by a filter. You cannot see the models or objects that you would not be included in the filter you're currently using to access the database. But is there anything else you want to add on that, on top of that, Kai?
Yeah, it's an interesting thought, because maybe this goes into the direction of there are certain information that are either more relevant to a certain stakeholder group than to another one. Then you can have two filters. You can have one filter that adds certain things, and then your viewers will see that in the fact sheet, and the others might not. Or it might also be that you have certain sensitive information that you don't want people to see, but they are related to a model that should be publicly available. Then you can also take a multi-filter approach, I would say, to create visibility for dedicated stakeholders that should see it, and prevent others who shouldn't to not see it.
That's amazing. So you can use the same fact sheet would apply differently to different user groups based off the filters that they've got brought up. That's great. That lets you reuse information based off of, or reuse configuration based off of who's looking, and give them what they need. All right. And oh yes, this is a great one. Lastly, this is tied into navigation, but this is, can you drill down from dashboards into content? And I gotta tell you, I use dashboards for navigation all the time. So while fact sheets are powerful, the tiles on the last mile approach is really powerful, also remember that you can click on components of your fact sheet. Double clicking on a thing in a fact sheet can take you to the item that it is showing you. And I've got a bunch of my customers who, once again, we're trying to reduce the number of clicks. If they can call up a dashboard that is dynamically updated, and an item in that dashboard list is something that is on in a repository somewhere, and they can double click on it, bam, suddenly you have a 1 or 2 click navigation into what you want to get to. And that's our purpose here, is to reduce the number of steps between I want something and here it is.
Exactly.
Well, folks, we've come to the end of our scheduled time today. There are still more questions left unanswered. My apologies for folks who didn't get their questions run quite yet, but this was a really great opportunity for us to have a chat. I would encourage you to reach out to your customer success managers, or to reach out to your account executives, or to reach out to us. Kai and I would love to chat more with all of y'all through LinkedIn or by email. I'm just j-m@aris.com and kai.drosen@aris.com. Both of us would love to have a continued conversation with our wonderful ARIS family out there in webinar land. If you like this, I would encourage you, please stay tuned. We have more webinars coming with some amazing both business tips and technical tips to make this come to life. And thank you again to Kai. A fantastic webinar today, my friend. This was fantastic. We're going to launch a quick survey at the end to see how you liked it or what else you'd like to see in the future. This is going to help me to inform the rest of the evangelism team what kinds of stuff we want to put on for future webinars. But thank you once again for joining us today. And Kai, much, much love. This was awesome.
Thank you. And thanks everyone for joining.
Have a good one.